It's our final mailbag episode of the season. So let's get to all the questions next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know how this channel works, I bring you episodes Monday through Friday, though this week, not going to have one on Friday. I'm getting married this weekend, so this Mailbag Thursday episode will have to do. But typically, even in the off-season, we bring you those 5 episodes a week, 30 minutes in length. And check out the Locked On Royals postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. He's only got 5 more to go, 2 more for the Angels series, and then 3 more in Sacramento against the Athletics. He'll go to you live for about 15 to 20 minutes after each and every game. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. We don't have as many questions, and I don't blame everybody out there because we're having to do it 2 days early when I put the question out there because I'm having to pre-record on a Wednesday for a Thursday episode. So if your questions come in a little bit late, I'll try my best to answer them at the end of the weekend. Very busy weekend for me, so if I do miss it, I apologize. But for those that sent it in before I started pre-recording, I'll be sure to give you some in-depth answers because we don't have 40 or 45 to get to. We got about 15 or so I can be a little bit more long-winded on all of my answers. Question number 1 is coming from Salvi is my king. Will the Royals make aggressive moves this offseason? And if so, will it be by trade or free agency? I do expect them to be aggressive, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's through the trade route. It just seems that the Royals are more inclined to go after players via trade because they want those extra years of control. I understand you can have that in free agency by paying someone multiple years, but if you get a young, controllable player for cheap, that always seems to be the Royals' path. Now, they did try to spend some money last offseason. It just didn't really line up. And I'm not sure this is the perfect free agent pool for them. There are guys they absolutely could go out there and acquire, and it would upgrade this team. But when I go through the free agent pool for outfielders and just bench players, I didn't find 5 or 6 perfect fits. I found about 2. And we'll be talking about that next week when we're going over offseason targets. So that's why I feel the trade route is going to be a better play for the Royals. They have a surplus of pitching that they can move, whether that be in Kansas City or the minor league level. They've got a couple of top 10 guys in their system that could bring back some talent. So I would say they will be aggressive, and I will say that they'll probably go the trade route there. Next one is coming from Parker. What was different from this year and last year? I feel like they had a similar team. What went wrong? And congrats about getting married. Well, thank you as always. I know a lot of people have been saying that in the comments. I really do appreciate it and looking forward to it. But as for your original question, what went wrong this year? I would say the injuries really piled up. When you have your entire rotation from the opening day roster spend at least some time on the injured list, that's going to derail your season a little bit. Now, the inconsistent offense is what really made this team go south because the pitching staff still was able to hold their own. They had a good bullpen this year. They had a pretty good rotation. Even when they lost key players, they found guys to pick up the slack. Still, last year, they had this perfect clean bill of health. Rarely did anybody go on the injured list, and they had an MVP-like season from Bobby Witt Jr. He's been still really incredible this year, but not as good as he was last year. So a couple of those factors, I would say, is what led to this team not finishing in the postseason and falling, more than a few games short. So injuries, inconsistent offense, and just not having the star-like season that you became accustomed to last year with Bobby Witt Jr. Next one is coming from Steve. Would you trade Chris Bubich and Blake Mitchell for Joe Adell? And would that be a legitimate deal for both teams? Love your show. And thanks for the kind words. As always, Steve, I believe that might be an overpay for the Royals. I like Joe Adell. I really do. And I hope they target him over Taylor Ward in the offseason because Joe Adell's a little bit younger. And I feel that the upside can be there of a 35 to 40 home run bat. What I would say, though, is if you're going to go after Joe Adell, kind of has to be one or the other there. I'm not sure you want to pair one of your top prospects with a guy who was an all-star a year ago. I really do feel that if the Royals are going to move Chris Bubich, it's going to be a big-time get. Not someone like Joe Adell, who turned in a career year, absolutely. But prior to that, was always seen as a big-time bust in the Angels system. So maybe they're going to want to move Joe Adell because they can rebuild their system a little bit. That's why I was never high on the Angels making moves at the deadline. I love it when teams try to give themselves a chance, but either go all in or sell. Right, that's what I like to see. And maybe not put all the chips in, but be aggressive at the deadline or sell off some pieces. And the Angels, kind of tried to add a little bit at the deadline, held on to their star players and ones that they could get a lot of value for. And then now we're going to finish in last place in the AL West. So maybe you can revisit that in the offseason. I know they've tried to go get Taylor Ward before. Maybe now you make that pivot to Joe Adell, but I'm not sure that I would give up Chris Bubich and Blake Mitchell for him. I feel that would be an overpay on Kansas City's part. Matt's question, in case you didn't see it on the Jack Improving video, is this the ceiling for Vinny and Michael, or can they take it to yet another level next season? I would say that this is likely the ceiling or really close to it. And that is not to disrespect Michael Garcia or Vinny Pasquantino. We have to take into account how incredible they've been this year. Michael Garcia is going to be a top 15 player in terms of WAR when it's all said and done. At least last time I checked, he'll be about a top 15 player. Gold Glove defense at third. The only thing he really lacks is power. And still, he's a 15 to 20 home run guy, which I'll take in this lineup every single day. I hope he's this team's leadoff hitter next year. But to be a 285 to 290 hitter, you've got a little bit of pop there. You hit the ball incredibly hard. Elite defense. You swiped 39 bags last year, not as much this year, I believe, because they paid closer attention to him over there. But I believe this is probably the ceiling for Michael Garcia, and that's still a dang good player. That's somebody that's an all-star every single year. For Vinny, the only thing I would say is he might be able to improve the walk rate a little bit, but a 270 hitter with 30-plus bombs and driving in over 100, again, sign me up every single year. If this is the ceiling for them and they can be around that every single year, they've got two studs at the hot corner in Kansas City for years to come. Next one is coming in from RT. India hasn't played much at all down the stretch, even sat against the lefty on Tuesday. Is he hurt or do they sign a future non-tender? Or is this a sign of a future non-tender? Excuse me. I talked about this in our episode on Wednesday morning. I talked about this on The Zone with Jason Anderson and Sterling Holmes on Wednesday as well. This is becoming more noticeable that he's not playing. And I'm not sure it's just the Royals are out of it. Let's give some at-bats to, the younger guys. They're playing Adam Frazier out there. Adam Frazier might be back next year. I don't really know, but he's on a one-year deal. Jonathan India has an extra year of control with this team, and the fact he's not playing and we can believe that he's healthy-ish, then I believe that might be a sign of things to come. Either they try to move him or they just non-tender him in the offseason. It was not a good year for Jonathan India. That was another thing I was wrong on. I thought he was really going to play nicely in this lineup, but the walk rate numbers went down, didn't hit for power, didn't have many extra base hits, didn't play good defense. I'm not sure that's somebody that you want back next year. And him not playing, if he was hurt, I feel they would try to address that and say, well, we're just sitting him now because he's still pretty banged up. I feel this is more so about playing guys that are better fit for this lineup. And at this point in time, that's Adam Frazier and that's Michael Massey. Let's get to one more here before our first break. It's going to be coming from Beeve. This really isn't much of a question, but I've done quite a bit of stat searching, and I really wish they had more of an unlucky stat. I believe that the Royals were just one of the unluckiest teams all year. A lot of little calls didn't go our way most of the time, and a lot of solid contact, but right at someone. Where I'm getting at is, do you agree the Royals have a case of being one of the unluckier teams all season long? There is a stat, I want to say it's on Baseball Savant, of like the luck factor. Not sure it's Fangraphs. I believe it is Baseball Savant, where you can look into the luck factor, and it's more so for individual players, not so much the team. I do feel the Royals had a lot of atom balls at people, but what I will say is this. You want to hit the ball hard every single time. And I do champion that a lot of players they hit the ball really hard, and you got to keep doing that. Like when you're growing up and playing Little League, or you played in high school or college, or maybe you did play professionally and you're listening to us, they tell you to hit the ball hard. And when you hit the ball hard, they don't come back and yell at you in the dugout. Or when you do walk back to the dugout, they don't say, well, you need to hit the ball in the air next time. But that does need to be a focus of, if you're hitting the ball really hard, it's one thing to hit the ball with authority on a line or in the air and hit the ball really hard right at somebody in the infield, right? Because ground balls that are hit hard, if you hit them where they're not, they're going to be hits. But the Royals have a lot of guys who hit the ball hard and they're ground balls. Like Jack Caglione needs to be somebody that hits the ball hard and hits the ball in the air. That turns him from a 10 home run guy to a 35 home run guy for how hard he hits the ball. I thought Michael Garcia did a much better job this year of having that line drive swing. You hit the ball hard, you hit a line drive, it's going to find the grass more often than not. But the Royals have a lot of ground ball hitters, and that's why they've had some bad luck this year. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, still a lot of questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. Want to tell you about one of our two sponsors today in FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And for my pick, yet again, it's another college football game, 11 a.m. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame will be in Fayetteville against Arkansas. Give me the over on scrimmage yards for Taylon Green. I believe he's an incredibly underrated quarterback in the SEC. Very much a dual threat, strong arm, big body, can run around. I believe that he's going to have a day against Notre Dame. Not sure if that'll be enough for Arkansas to win, but I feel good that a guy that's been so underrated this year can play well in front of a sold-out crowd against Notre Dame on Saturday. All right, let's get to our next question here from Aiden. Blake Mitchell, Chris Bubich, and another player for Jarren Duran. Do you think that's enough to get it done? I guess knowing what I know about the Royals and getting a good feel as to what they try to do through trade, I'm not sure they would ever give up three players for one. Not with where they're at in their contention window. Maybe if they get to that final year of a window and it's win now mode, you kind of have that Johnny Cueto-like deal where you give up three pitchers. It was Brandon Finnegan, Cody Reed, and John Lamb for Johnny Cueto. Maybe you get to that point. But where they're at, I'm not sure they want to sell off that many players for a guy like Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran would be a great fit in Kansas City, great for that outfield. But I feel that they would want to go after other guys for that outfield where they're not having to give up someone who was an all-star last year and they still have very high hopes for, a catcher that they're still very high on. He just hasn't put up the numbers yet. And to throw in another player, that would be too much in my opinion. I mean, if Boston's going to have the upper hand in that, I would let somebody else do that trade because I also feel that Jarren Duran's coming up on, his free agent year. So if you were to acquire him, you also got to think about extending him. And so that's another factor here. If the Royals were to go out there and give up three players for someone with 5 years of control, that's a different story here. But even in Boston, Jarren Duran's not the guy that I'm the most high on. I feel that Wilyer Abreu is a better fit in Kansas City with what he does defensively. He's one of the best corner outfielders in the game. His bat really plays nicely. He doesn't hit lefties very well. I remember we talked about that when the Royals were playing the Red Sox at Fenway. But he's more of a target, in my opinion, than Jarren Duran. So I would say that's, again, an overpay for the Royals. If they're going to move Chris Bubich, they are going to get one, if not two, legitimate pieces there because they value him very highly, and they're going to try to sell that if they were to move Chris Bubich in the offseason. This one's from Chris. With the amount of pitching injuries, how much of it is bad luck, the type of pitchers the Royals like to acquire, something with the training staff and process, or a combo? It's a very fair question. I know that people have been complaining about the Royals injury bug and these pitchers winding up on the injured list. Some of it comes down to last year as well. You had some guys throw an amount of innings that they're not used to. Seth Lugo threw over 200 innings. This is a guy who at one point was a reliever and prior to coming to Kansas City threw around 140 innings. So you jump that by 60. The next year, even with the rest in the offseason, you might have a little bit more wear and tear. Now, let me be clear about Seth Lugo last year. Seth Lugo in year one of that contract was not in a position where you say, well, he's been one of our best arms. He's a Cy Young finalist. We don't want him throwing that many innings. No, they needed to have length out of their starting pitching because their bullpen wasn't as strong. Cole Reagans is someone that never had come close to throwing, over 120 innings. In fact, I don't believe he had thrown over 100 and made 30 plus starts last year. Michael Wacha had thrown, around 140 to 150 innings in San Diego. And then, he throws close to 180 in Kansas City. He hadn't done that in a couple of years. So that's what I believe factors in for the starting rotation. Chris Bubich was recovering from Tommy John, and then he throws 30 innings out of the bullpen for the Royals in 24. And then he throws over 100 innings, by the All-Star break this year. You're just going to have more guys that run into the fatigue factor. Some of it, though, is also random. Pitchers are going to get banged up. Guys are going to have something flare up. That just happens. I'm not going to put any blame on the training staff for that. They do a really good job in making sure these guys are prepared. And I can give you confidence that the coaching staff does not try to overwork these guys. They know what their inning limits are. Brian Sweeney and Zach Bove, Mitch Stetter, Matt Quatrero, Paul Hoover, all of those guys are very in tune with what these pitchers are capable of doing. And sometimes you just have injuries that pop up. Right now, there are the injury-prone pitchers like a Hunter Harvey, who never was healthy in Kansas City, it felt like. And there's situations like, Lugo and Reagans and Wacha and Bubich where it just can happen, unfortunately. And this year, they had some bad luck with those injuries. Last year, they had a clean bill of health. And now you're looking to 2026 and have your fingers crossed that they can have a much healthier season than they did this year. Very fair question, though. DMB's question, any chance we take a big swing and try to sign Bichette and move him to second base? Can't imagine he stays at shortstop, and who might be a target for left field? Went through the outfielders and not a lot that fit. And those who are teams that aren't really trade partners, they don't have guys that match up with Kansas City either. At least I think that's what you were getting at there. Bo Bichette is intriguing. And Bo Bichette is somebody that I believe is going to generate a lot of trade interest in the offseason. And are the Royals going to be one of those teams? It's possible. It's also a question of mine of, does Bo Bichette want to move positions? Because at one point in time, he was one of the best young shortstops in the game. And now we just don't talk about him as much because Bobby Witt Jr. burst onto the scene as a shortstop in Kansas City, of course, and became an MVP candidate and one of the best players in the entire sport. Then you have Jacob Wilson, who started over Bobby in the All-Star game. So Bo Bichette kind of fizzled off a little bit. Now he battled injuries, and he still is a very talented player, but it would take a lot to acquire someone like that. Would I love it? Absolutely, if you could get it done. I feel he's one of those players that you would feel all right in overpaying for, but that price is going to be higher than maybe we even expect. And you're exactly right, too. I don't believe that if you look at the corner outfielders, there is that automatic perfect match for the Royals. There's not a free agent where I say you throw the blank check down and say, whatever you want, we'll give it to you, and you're going to be our right or left fielder for the next 5 to 6 years. There's not one of those guys out there. And with the way that we've seen J.J. Picollo operate, it's been more about how can we improve this team with guys that really fit our style of play. What I'm getting at here is Kyle Tucker makes every team better in baseball. He has not had the greatest second half in Chicago. He's played through an injury, but Kyle Tucker is going to be the most coveted free agent out there. And I've been asked, well, can the Royals go out there and get Kyle Tucker? I suppose they could throw a lot of money at him, give him a 9 to 10 year deal and pay him north of $30 million a year, become the most expensive player on the roster. But does that really solve all the problems for the Royals? It doesn't. This is about getting better in multiple areas for this lineup, getting more depth, and not breaking your back financially and trying to get things done. Like, I believe this team can upgrade through trade. I believe they can add a couple of platoon pieces that will make this lineup much more improved. and, have some competition in spring training. Because I feel that's more so what the Royals are going to try to do than throw down a blank check at someone, a corner outfielder, because the outfield just struggled last year. They need to bring in a couple of outfielders that can raise the ceiling, or raise the floor, I should say, of that outfield group, because they need a lot of help, and we all know it. Okay, we'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's answer our final set of questions in this Mailbag Thursday edition of Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our final sponsor of today's show in Rugiet. What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence, pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. And you can ready up your confidence in the bedroom now by heading to Rugiet.com. That's RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off on your first year. That's RUGIET.com with promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. Our final set of questions for the regular season. We'll still be doing this in the offseason, so don't worry about that. But to talk about the 2025 Royals, this is the last time we'll be doing that. This question is coming from Brian. What do we do at second base next year, Massey or India? Glad you asked this, because in case you missed our episode on Wednesday, it was one of our segments of, do the Royals go with Jonathan India? Do they go with Michael Massey? My gut tells me that they would rather go with Michael Massey and Adam Frazier than Jonathan India. I just don't know if the upside is there anymore for Jonathan India. He's not good defensively. The bat was really poor this year. The walk rate went down. I just feel that the Royals can bank on higher upside at that position, or they can go outside the organization and bring in someone else to play the position. I know that Luis Ariz will be a free agent. The Royals absolutely love his ability of putting the ball in play and not striking out at all. He's also not that great, though, defensively. Maybe you go with a platoon at second base. We've seen it a little bit while Jonathan India has been on the bench. Adam Frazier's been hitting the lefties. Michael Massey's been hitting the righties. So I would expect, anytime there's a lefty out there in the Athletic series, that's when Adam Frazier's going to be in there. But also Michael Massey's played well since coming off the injured list. That's what my gut is telling me. Now, it's not as simple as just cutting bait, moving on, DFAing. You'd have to non-tender Jonathan India, and who knows, maybe they would try to move him before non-tendering him. Maybe they would try to catch a team that's desperate for a second baseman, looking for a bounce back, and that's the move they would make. But I would probably lean more toward Massey and Adam Frazier than the Royals bringing back Jonathan India. This one is coming from Jeff, I believe it was. Yes, this is Jeff's question on Twitter. What team do you see making a blockbuster trade next season? I doubt it will be the Royals. And for fun, what is your favorite AL Central stadium to visit? My favorite AL Central stadium to visit was actually Comerica. I did that back in 2014 when the Tigers were still running that division, and it felt like the Tigers were going to be running that division all season long in 2025. And I wanted to get out there in Detroit for a series where the Royals were there, because I really did enjoy it. It's a beautiful ballpark. You get the downtown backdrop. There's a lot of great areas to go and have lunch, dinner before the game. I can remember that day it was Danny Duffy versus Doug Fister that were throwing. The Royals lost 2-1. They didn't score until like the 7th or the 8th inning, and it was on a Butler RBI double. But it was a good pitcher's duel, and we sat upper deck, left field side. I was actually at a baseball tournament at Notre Dame that weekend, so you had to make the drive from South Bend to Detroit. It wasn't too terrible to drive either, but I've been to Comerica. I've been to Target Field. I saw Jorge Lopez's almost near perfect game, which I would love to go back and see the odds of that, of road tripping to a stadium and catching a near perfect game from somebody who wasn't a top level pitcher. So I've always wanted to go check out the odds on that. But I've been to those two stadiums. Target Field was gorgeous too. The backdrop there, The bars and restaurants around the stadium were really nice to go to. And even the tailgating atmosphere a little bit was pretty cool at both of those stadiums. But I'll put my vote at Comerica Park. I really like what they do out there. They got the 2 giant tigers outside the stadium and the tiger heads, which are pretty cool. Massive scoreboard. If you sit in the upper deck, get that backdrop of downtown. And I'm not sure whether you sit in left, behind home plate, or in right field, it's going to be a bad seat. I mean, I really have nothing but great things to say. And now on my list is to get out to Cleveland and watch a series out there, because I've heard the fans are very nice out there, and sitting out in that steep left field bleacher section is where I should go to. At least I've been told that before, but would love to hear your thoughts as well. If you guys have been to other AL Central stadiums, what your favorite would be. Mine's going to be Comerica Park. And then also for your question about the blockbuster trade, I'm going to say Padres again. I mean, AJ Preller likes to really go all in, and he's the only GM, in my opinion, that is not afraid whatsoever to give up prospects. I mean, the Royals were able to strike a deal with Freddie Fermin and got 2 pitchers with 5+ years of control. And we know that the Royals love what they've saw in Ryan Bergert. They love what they've seen in Stephen Kolek. So I would say that AJ Preller and the Padres would be that team to make another massive blockbuster deal. Now, what I am going to do in our offseason episode is to look at some of those big name guys that are going to be free agents, because that's what the blockbuster deal would be, in my opinion. You got the guy that's coming up on a contract year, and one of those all-in buyers is going to sell the farm for him. But I love that question. I absolutely will be talking about it at some point in the offseason. And this last one, the last one for the regular season, is from Casey Preds fan. It feels like one of our starting pitchers is bound to be traded this offseason. Do you feel like trading Bubic makes more sense? Free agent after next year and probably has the most value of anyone other than Reagans. I've said before, and I guess I will echo this, that Chris Bubic would make the most sense because Cole Reagans is this team's ace. Not sure you're going to get a haul for Seth Lugo or Walker with their contracts. Noah Cameron just got started, and I feel you almost had to pick between Cameron and Bubic. And Chris Bubic has the Tommy John surgery, had the rotator cuff strain. I almost wonder if injuries are always going to be a part of that. But I would say that upside-wise, like Chris Bubic has the chance of being a better arm than Noah Cameron. I believe he's got better stuff. But the Royals can develop these pitchers like no other, it feels like. I mean, they turned Noah Cameron into what he was and what he has become. If you feel that you can make him better than Bubic, then yeah, I would try to move Chris Bubic for a bat this offseason. But I wouldn't say that he has the most value because he would be a free agent after next season. Noah Cameron, I believe, would have more value there, but I'm not sure you'd want to give up on somebody that has that many years of control. I'd rather keep Noah Cameron. I would also rather keep Chris Bubic and try to find a way to give him an extension. Who knows, maybe the injury proneness, if you will, could bring down that price a little bit, because we know the Royals starting pitching is the lifeblood, and you don't want to get, too reckless with it, where you're just trading guys because you feel you can turn everybody into a star pitcher. When you've got all-star talent in your rotation, you need to make sure you're getting an absolute haul if you're going to move them. Well, that'll do it for our final regular season mailbag episode on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen every day. For your second, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I will be off on Friday. I will be very busy this weekend, as you guys know by now. Look for Chance Lebo in the Locked On Royals postcast for immediate reactions, but I'll be back on Monday recapping the 2025 season, what they did against the Athletics in Sacramento, and then looking ahead to what should be a very busy offseason. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.